Hello and welcome to your Illustrator Challenge. I'm Andrew Hochradel. I am going to be your host and guide today as we jump into making vintage video game lettering. We're going to be inspired by kind of an 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, one of those bits, lettering, right? Imagine at the beginning of a video game, you're starting, it says press start, you've got the title on the screen. That's what we're going to be making today. And we're going to be doing that using selection tools. So if you want to learn more about selection tools, if you want to learn how to create some vintage retro lettering, stick around. And you also can follow along with me by going to the link down in the description. Going to that link down in the description, we will have a source file for you that will allow you to follow along with me, and it looks like this. So let's go ahead and hop over into Illustrator. That's the wrong button. That's also the wrong button. Oh, y'all, we're having trouble. Hold on. Get it together, Andrew. There we go. So here's what we're going to be doing today. We are going to be creating a little bit of a different look, which is going to be fun. And the reason that we have Voodoo Vexed on here is because our friend Voodoo Val is running the Photoshop challenges. If you want to, you can join her, I believe, for in a couple days for her challenge number 3, which is going to be animating an arcade cabinet. And I thought, what a better challenge to make a title for her vintage video game. And so if you are watching the replay, you can click right here. I'll have a little pop-up that will link to that video so that you can maybe do a little crossover and make it so that this project goes to that project. You can learn Illustrator and Photoshop all at the same time, right? What fun. All right, so in the source file, here's what we need to get started. We need to look over here on our layers panel. So if you don't have the layers panel open, you can open it right over here. If your workspace looks differently than mine, you can go to Window, and then you can go to Workspace and click on Reset Essentials Classic or Set Essentials Classic. That's what I'm working with. All right, so we have our text here, and there are a couple things that we want to talk about on this source file. The first is not necessarily the project, but it is this little thing here. Our insiders community is looking for people to give feedback and to be engaged with a small group that is running some tests and maybe some beta features. Provide your feedback. If you're interested in that and you are a beginner in Adobe Illustrator, you can check it out right here, adobe.ly/AI survey. It also will be in the chat. I'll make sure to drop it in the comments on the YouTube video as well. So you can check those out, and we'd love for you to be a part. All right, let's hop in to our tutorial. Today, our challenge is going to be creating 16-bit inspired lettering using grids, lasso tools, and layers. So we have our layers over here, and you want to open that panel, and you can see that we have the grid, which is just that pixel for now, just a single pixel. And then underneath, we have the base, which is everything else. So what we're going to do, very, very important. We are going to lock the base. So when you click here on the lock, it is going to make it so that you cannot edit that layer at all. So all you need to do, check this out. You can click and nothing's going to happen. That's what we want because we're working with very complicated grids today. So the next thing we're, excuse me. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to make a crazy pixel grid. So we have a single pixel here, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to use a selection tool, which is just V, to click and drag to the side, and you'll see it lock up right there on the edge of that pixel on the side. So we've got the pixel right there, and all you need to do is hit Control D, or you can go to Object, Transform, and Transform again. And Illustrator remembers what you just did, and it will have you do it again. So watch this. I'm going to zoom out, and because we moved that one pixel, we are going to hit Control D, and we're just going to hold it and watch what happens. There are different ways to do this. There are better ways to do this, but this is the way that I do it, and there are no wrong ways to do creativity. If it works for you, then it works. That's kind of just my outlook. If you're doing it differently than me, that's fine. We can still work together as long as you have a pixel grid. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing vertically. I'm holding Alt or Option and just making a copy so that it locks up right there. So I'm actually going to make these yellow. So we're going to change the color by selecting them and then coming into our color picker right there to make this yellow. And I also am going to multiply this. So we're going to have it selected and then change the blending mode to multiply. That will allow us to see what's happening underneath, which is important for us creating this lettering. So now we can click and drag, and again, we're just trying to line it up right there to create this pixel grid. So we've got 2 of them. Let's do a set of 4. So you can keep clicking and dragging and it will multiply basically your grid. And from there, let's just hold Control D again and boom. As long as we cover all the letters, that's what really counts right now. So we don't really need anything else. All right, so now we're going to use a tool in Illustrator that I don't think a lot of people use. It's a very, very powerful tool, and it's in Photoshop, but it's also here in Illustrator, and that is the Lasso tool. In the top left, we have the Lasso tool, and all we need to do is click on that Lasso tool, and then we can start deleting pieces. So we're going to work in a subtractive method, and there are different ways to do this. Again, this is my favorite way to do it because it looks wrong. My favorite thing about working with retro and vintage stuff is it was almost never perfect. And so I love using this technique because it allows for those little inconsistencies that make your letters really fun. So we're going to click and drag, and I'm just going to delete everything that is outside of these letters. So the cool thing about the Lasso tool, you don't have to completely close out this path. I can just let go and it will close it and select it for me. Now, if we zoom in here, you can see there are some pieces that are white and there are some pieces that are red. So the red anchor points are selected. So if we delete them, it's going to leave us with all these extra anchor points and weird pieces. But if we hit delete again, it's going to delete both of those. So anytime you're using the Lasso tool for this technique, just go ahead and hit delete twice. So I'm just going to carve out around these letters and hit delete, and then one more time. And you can see it's just taking away all those pieces that we won't need. And it's almost like doing a sculpture is the best way that I like to think about it, is we're kind of sculpting these letters out of these pixels. So we've got a good grid here. Let's go ahead and zoom in, and we're just going to outline these letters with the Lasso tool. So we're holding the Lasso tool, and what we can do is not close our path. We can come around the other side. And again, there are different ways to do this. We can come around the other side, and that's going to delete everything outside of that letter, right? So it's looking pretty good behind there already. And the fun part is we're not going to be able to see until we move it or delete, turn off that top layer. So I'm just going to grab a couple of these pixels that are along the side and just double delete those. The cool thing about this game title that we're working with, it does have a couple O's. So all we need to do is make one of these O's, and then we can click and drag it to make a second O. So again, the middle of this probably should be symmetrical, but I'm going to let it not be, right? Just to make it a little more unique. And again, we're learning together. And so if you're doing something wrong, if it feels like it's not right, it's fine. This is a place for you to explore, to try new things, and hopefully just learn some fun new techniques. So all of these, I'm just going to delete because I already have an O. So I'm going to delete this out because we don't need it. We'll just use a copy of that O. So here with this D, I'm going to do the same thing and just start carving out. And I know this is a little bit tedious and probably not the most fun to watch on a live stream, but it is going to have a really, really cool outcome, I promise. If you are watching on replay, you can totally fast forward if you want right here. You can fast forward into the part that like maybe there's a title that just says finished thing. You could skip there. And is everything on one layer? A question from Marcia in our live chat. Yes, this is a live stream. Everything is in 2 layers. So we're working on the grid layer right now after we've made our grid, and the base layer is locked so that we can't use the Lasso tool. So if it's not locked and you try to use the Lasso tool, it's going to select this text and delete it. We don't want that. We want to make sure that the text is not selectable. So we're going to hit lock right there. All right, let's cut out the middle of this letter right there. Got a little bit too much. Let's try it one more time. All right, looks good to me. And the O's doesn't matter. So here we go. We're going to make a copy of those O's. All I need to do is click and drag over these pieces. And you can see, oh, it's grabbing all the grid. So we're just going to go ahead and ungroup that. And you can do that by going to right click and ungroup. So I'm going to clear us a little more space here because we don't need any of this stuff because we are going to copy those O's. And now you can see we've got all of these nice yellow pieces. Get out of here. All right, we've got all these nice yellow pieces and we're just going to drag them over to the corner. I'm hitting Alt or Option to make a copy. And you can see we've got some nice letters looking a little wonky, but let's go ahead and even these out. Again, using that Lasso tool, I can just grab some of these extra pixels that I feel like are a little off, and make it so that they line up a little better. The same here on the top. I'm going to delete that one. And this is looking pretty good. And the cool thing, if you're missing pieces, right, we want to have a little bit more in here. All we need to do is come in here, grab these pixels, and we can fill in very easily and very quickly using that lasso tool, and then just using the tools that you have to build with those pixels. So it looks like maybe we have an extra row here at the bottom of the O. So I'm just going to use that lasso tool, grab that, and delete twice. And we've got this little squatty O, which I love. I think it's fun. So this is looking good. I'm going to go ahead and group all of these, clicking and dragging. And if we want to, again, just using that lasso tool to drag around each of these letters. So looking good. We're going to make a couple copies of this O. And on this side, I don't necessarily like that this is sticking out. So I'm just going to make this O a little bit squattier. Cool. Looks a little different. Meh. Let's keep them the same. Why not? So we've got the O's looking good. Let's do a couple more of these O's and just move them over here. All right, looks good to me. So we've got Voodoo going on first. We can do Vexed if we have time, but I want to show you some techniques real quick. So the cool thing that we can do here is because these are all just individual pixels, we can actually do some really cool color techniques. And so I'm just going to drag this over to the colors that I've provided for you over here. This is actually the color scheme of Space Invaders, if you want to work along with that. And so another thing the Lasso tool is really great for if you're working in this style is to create some like cool lines or some cool accents to really give it a vintage, cool, unique feel. So what we're going to do is we're just going to split this in half with a little wave. So what I can do is just kind of wave my way in here and then circle around. You can see we've got this wave selection going through, and it's so much easier than selecting all these pixels. And now what we can do is use the eyedropper tool to add in a different color, right? So let's do this orange on the bottom. And when I deselect it, watch what happens. Ooh, we've got this cool kind of like chrome looking piece. And I don't necessarily like this, so I'm gonna undo it and I'm gonna bring that down just a little bit and give it some of that chrome look. Again, using that lasso tool, super quick and super easy. This is what I'm talking about. This is looking great. And yes, lasso tool is doing all of the work today. I'm gonna show you some different ways to do it and how to do selections, because today's all about selections. But yes, lasso tool is doing the hard pull today. So let's go ahead and hop in here. And what I wanna do is give it a little more dimension, right? And the cool thing is because these are all pixels, what I can do is just keep making patterns of this and I can keep moving things around to make sure that they are perfectly sized and just right for what we need them. Now, we are going to move to a little bit more advanced to make sure that things are pixel perfect. We're going to go to View and we are going to turn on Lock to Pixel, Snap to Pixel right there. So we're going to do Snap to Pixel and then we're going to go to View and we are going to do Show Pixel Grid. Oh boy, Andrew, where is this hitting? Show Grid, there we go. So we're gonna turn on Show Grid, and here you can see that as we start to move this all around, I'm just gonna group it. I'm gonna lock it into the corner here, and it will snap in right to that pixel, and then I'm actually going to shrink it down so that they are the same size of each of the pixels on the page. So it looks like we need a little bit more. This is just going to help us keep things a little bit organized, a little bit more organized. All right, a little bit less. Let's do one more. And that looks like about the size that we need. Sure. Yeah, cool. All right, so we are locked in to a little bit of a pixel grid. It's looking great to me. And things are looking good. All right, so here's what we're going to do. And yes, finding a menu item stresses me out. We're gonna turn off those pixel grids because we want to go ahead and create some cool effects. So turning off that pixel grid, hide grid, what we can do is I'm actually going to measure one of these boxes. And you can do that by clicking and dragging, and you can see that we are at 8.8 pixels. Not super helpful, but that's what we're gonna work with. Now, let's go ahead and add some cool things. If you're thinking about 8.8 pixels, everything needs to move in that size. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to make a copy of this and we're going to hit enter. And what that does is it allows us to move. So I'm going to move this down by negative 45 degrees. So it's moving down and to the right. And we're going to move it by, you guessed it, 8.8 pixels. And maybe we'll do double. So we'll do 16.16. 16.16. All right. So we're moving down. Actually, let's just do this. 16.16 to the bottom right. Sounds good. We're going to hit copy. And that's going to make a copy of our design. And I'm just going to make this all black. And guess what? We're going to send it to the back. Right click, arrange, and send to back. And boom, we've got some really cool lettering going on. Great, right? We've got a little bit of shadow going on there. It's a little bit too much for me. I might have just moved it 8.8. And what we can do, hit enter, and we'll just do this at a 135. And then again, just 8.8 here, and we'll move it back up a little bit closer to our type. That looks good to me. So something else that we could do here is we could use offset path. And offsetting path is going to allow us to create a border around this type. So we're going to go to object. Actually, let's go ahead and make a copy of this real quick. So we want our pixel still, but what we're going to do is we are going to hit copy. So edit copy, and then we can go to edit paste in place. And that is going to allow you to paste a copy right exactly where your type already is. So we're going to open up our viewfinder window by going to window and Pathfinder window. And we're just going to unite all this together. So now we have a clean pixel grid. Now let's add a border super easily by using offset path. So we're going to go to object and then offset path. So object, path, offset path. And if we don't want to do the math, this is my favorite thing about Adobe Illustrator. I want to have a 3 pixel border on this. So a pretty big pixel. All I need to do is 8.8. Watch this. And then I can do times 3. So I want to have 3 pixels. I know that my pixel is 8.8 times 3. Right click and boom. It has done the math for me. I don't have to do any math. My favorite thing about Illustrator. So we'll hit OK. That's a pretty thick border, but that's okay. And then I'm going to use the eyedropper tool here to just grab this dark blue and check it out. We got it going. I'm going to send this all the way to the back, arrange, send to back. And then we still have the leftover orange, so I'll do that. Yeah, that's looking cool. So we've got really cool pieces going on here, and we actually still have all of our individual pixels. So I'm gonna do one more thing. We're gonna add like a cool kind of shine on this typography. So all I need to do is I'm going to copy, Control C, and then paste in place, edit, paste in place. So this is all a group. So I'm going to double click in and it will allow me to just edit this group. Now I want to add some kind of cool chunky lines coming through. So I'm going to do this and just delete a lot of the pieces. And you can actually see where these lines are coming through. And that's going to allow us to give a little bit of shine to these letters and make it look like they're all a little bit more customized and unique. This is one of my favorite things to do because it always feels like those letters have a little shimmer on them. I always think about the Sega intro where it's like Sega, and then it has a little tring. That's what we're doing today. We're doing the tring. That's the part that we're working on. All right, so we've got this group, and you can't see it here, but you can see that it is its own group. We're going to make this white. And you're saying, Andrew, that's way too shiny. That's fine. We can change the blending mode over here to maybe soft light. And that will give us some nice kind of overlays. I think that looks good. Or we can set it at normal and then change the opacity to maybe 50%. There we go. That's given us some really good shine and shimmer over our whole piece. I think that's really fun. I like this a lot. So what we can do next, let's see, we got about 5 minutes. So I do want to show you one more thing, is we are going to use some more selection tools. And the way to use those selection tools is maybe want to do some color variations. And here's my secret. If you are grouping something, it's much easier to do selections because it's not going to select everything on your artboard. So we're going to hit Control G to group all of these pieces and then double click in. And now everything else is isolated on the board. And now you can very easily just edit what you want. So Another selection tool that you can use is the magic wand. Another thing from Photoshop, this is a Photoshop Illustrator crossover challenge, I guess, is you can use the magic wand up here on the right. And when you click, it's going to select everything that is that same color. So we can do some color variations, and maybe Voodoo Val, who's working in the Photoshop challenge, wants something a little bit different, so we can come in here and just do different color variations. So here's my advice to you. If you're trying to do color variations, what you can do is make them crazy colors. So use your magic wand tool, which is just Y, and you can make these crazy colors, and this will actually make it way easier for you to work on if the colors are not close to each other, right? So I'm literally gonna do like red, green, and purple. This looks terrible, but that's okay. And I'm guessing that Voodoo Val, yes, wants a cool purple kind of look, and we're gonna kind of pull these purples and this blue, I think, are the three that we're gonna use. So I'm gonna move this down over here. And now all you need to do is use that magic wand tool to grab each of these colors. So this purple, we're going to make this, maybe this light blue. And then here we're going to make the top this kind of dark purple. That's more blue. Let's make that purple. Let's make that really purple. There we go. Yeah. And then we can use the magic wand again to grab this green and change it over to maybe this color. Ooh, that already is looking pretty good. Let's see if that contrasts well with an orange, maybe a gray. Okay, let's make the background purple. I don't know. None of these colors really stand out to me. Let's do a dark black. Sure, that looks pretty cool to me. I'm not mad about it. So I think that is looking okay. It's not my favorite, but it's looking okay. And now we have a couple different variations of our typography. So if you wanted to, you could come in and finish out the rest of this. Again, you're just using the magic wand tool to go around and delete the pieces. Any kind of lettering you have, even if you're grabbing something from Adobe Express, Adobe Stock, it's super easy to use this technique using the Lasso tool. Make sure that you are working on your layers, and you can create some really, really cool typography just like this, right? So that is your challenge for today. Hopefully you learned something about selection tools, and I don't know a lot of people that use the Lasso tool, so go use it. It is so helpful. Again, if you are a new user to Illustrator, I do want you to go and apply to be a part of our insider community. We're looking for people to help out with discussions, to brainstorm ideas for product feedback, for maybe beta features that are on the way. And you can do that right here, adobe.ly/AI survey. That looks like this. You'll name it here, and you'll have a nice little screener that will ask some questions so we can learn a little bit more about you. Now, you also can upload your work, and I want to see your work. I will be here with you for all of the challenges that you see my face. I will be your friend hanging out in Discord. So you can join the Discord. There is a link down in the description, and you can join that Discord and then scroll down to the area that says Creative Challenge. You can click right there and check it out. Creative Challenge, you have, Creative Challenge feedback. Where are we? There we go. You can scroll down here and see that there's a lot of people doing challenges and posting their work. If you are having trouble, if you are having a problem, if you're not happy with how it's turning out, post it here. Tag me, tag anyone, and we would love to see your work and your lettering. My goodness, I have the hiccups. So we would love to see your work. We'd love to see your lettering here in Discord. I will be hanging out, giving you feedback. And at the end of all these challenges, there will be a challenge recap. So if you're watching live, tune back in at the end of the next 2 weeks, and we'll be hanging out. It'll be a great time. We've got more challenges coming for you all throughout the week, all throughout the time here on Adobe Live and on the Adobe Live YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you subscribe and make sure you follow us on Instagram. All right, everybody, we will see you another time. Thanks for joining me today for your Illustrator challenge. Hopefully you have a great day. And if you're watching this at night, have a good night too. Bye.